All right, I'm here with Staff Sergeant Hoyt, who is the marketing NCIC for the great state of Arizona. And it's good to have you, Staff Sergeant. The reason why I have you here is you put out an interesting post on the recruiting forum that I think is a great kind of advanced tool for recruiters to think about how they're going to find people and where they can find them. So I don't have that many questions for you. Not everybody looks at the recruiting forum, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to break down what you were talking about and how recruiters can use this tool.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I can just jump right into it if you like.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But so I know that when recruiters come on, new recruiters or even seasoned recruiters that come into a new area, some states are different than others, and I know that it can be challenging. So when I came on, I was born and raised in the AO that I was assigned. So for me, it was a little easier of a transition to kind of find out, where's my market, where do I need to be, where am I going to show success, because I was familiar with the AO. But seeing other recruiters come into my team that weren't from Arizona, or maybe they weren't from that part of the city, struggle. And I'd look with them and talk to them and say, well, why are you over here in this school? Like, from what I know of that school, just from my social upbringing and being around, it's not really a military friendly school. It's like, oh, but it's big and it's got an ROTC and it's got a XYZ. And the counselor lets me in and I can always set up table displays. But the propensity for those students to enlist is significantly low because of whatever reason. Social demographics, income, competition, maybe the ROTC. Sometimes some are better than others. At this specific school, it was more of a how do you say, troubled kids went into the ROTC program.
Yeah.
Just from our knowledge of growing up in the area. And that was something that you wouldn't necessarily know unless you spent some time there. And it's unfortunate because as you spend that time there, you're wasting days of processing. And it gets to a point to where you're 3, 4, 5 months into the year and you're behind already to figure out that demographic. So I started sitting down and looking at, once I took over the marketing role, I did this as a production recruiter. And I shared some, as people would ask, and we'd work with my team. And I had a very successful team at the time. And they all were grinders and hustlers and went out there and turned every stone and every rock and got in every school. But out of effort, out of working hard, long hours. And it wasn't as effective as it could have been. Successful based on talent and effort. And we started jumping into some of this stuff to say, all right, well, hey, we're going to work hard. Why not work effective? Why not put those hours in the area that's got the highest propensity of enlistment? It's got the highest population. And then bend that learning curve based on data, right? Help us find out where to go, just like every other marketing advertising company does in the world. They place their product where their product is needed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the approach that we started taking, that I've taken now, and as a marketing NCIC, I continue to push. I build these spreadsheets. I go RSID by RSID. It takes some time. It absolutely does. And it gives the recruiters a starting point. And if you start basically with a baseline data of your AO, whether you're new there or not, these reports and this graph will really start to tell you where to go. I pull a general report, your MEPCOM contracts for mapping report in data warehouse. So I don't know if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen, David?
Yep.
So
Okay.
I usually jump right into data warehouse and I'll pull just your normal. Let me get it up for you. I'll go into data warehouse, into your favorites from iChrome, and I'll pull your Metcom contracts for mapping. And anybody with an RSID, for the most part, that has access can pull this. Once you pull it, it'll come up, and we should be pulling them. I think sit down with your NCO and you can kind of get in there and start to access some of that stuff. I'll pull one up for you right now and show you what it looks like. And basically it has, for the recruiters that haven't seen it, your NCO can easily walk you through it. It's got all the zip codes in the state, and it's got your DoD take. So what traditionally, and I only run it for the previous year and the current year.
Can you blow that up a little bit?
Yep.
And I'd just like to interject here for some of the newer recruiters. It is, we kind of interchange propensity for really what we call it propensity, but it is really penetration. It is where we've got the contracts either last year or the year before, which is a good piece of data. And the connection that recruiters should have in their mind is, this is like a fish finder. This is where the enlistments have been in the past. And based on population, that demographic group. And so it's a good piece of information. It's not all that can be, but it's what has been. So go ahead.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, it's not the end all be all. And just running this report and keeping this data, it's not going to make you the next Chiefs 54, but it really helps you, like you said, right? Find that honey hole. And with that information, it's going to help you save time. So I'm trying to multitask here for a second. Sometimes it doesn't always work. I'm not an Excel genius, but it would definitely help if I was.
So what you have pulled up is an individual recruiter zip code here, and it's got the DoD contracts by branch of service.
Can you see the screen that's got the Snapchat report and the map on it?
Yes.
Okay. So once you pull that report, you can filter by zip code. So I'll go in to RZ, write down all the zip codes that I have assigned, or that are going to that assigned recruiter. And I say, this RSID AZCC, she's a recruiter here in Arizona in the northern part of the state. I'll go and I'll pull all of her zip codes. Let's say that was mine, or that was a new recruiter, a junior recruiter coming in. Those were their zip codes. It's going to give you the county, right? The assigned zip codes for the RSID, and then the DoD take for those zip codes. Now that doesn't show all of her enlistments. That just shows the zip codes that she's assigned and the DoD take for them. She may have enlistments in other zip codes, right?
Yeah.
A little, we call poaching, but it shows, okay, so this recruiter's assigned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? Zip codes, and here's the DoD take. So her number 1 zip code has got 8 enlistments, 5 of those being Army. So I would say in that zip code, they're more likely to join the Army, or the Army has a bigger presence, which could be good for her. But she has 0 enlistments for that zip code. Now this recruiter is super squared away. So this doesn't reflect obviously all of her enlistments. But for this specific zip code, she's got 0 and there's 8. You drop down to the 1 that she has in this zip code, 86301. She's got 1. She's got the only one for that DoD take enlistment. So we know these bottom, I would even say the 2s, right? So from here down, she's got really not a whole lot of market to play in. I wouldn't spend my time there, right? Regardless of what high schools were there, what programs are there, not initially. I'm going to look at the number one zip code. This zip code's got everybody that joins the military for all of her zip codes. So I'm going to pull this one up and I'm going to say, wow, there's opportunity here. There's a gap in the market, right? I have 0, DOD has 8. NGB says that I should have anywhere between 12 to 19, 20, 25% of that market. It just depends on your state, right? And I'm going to hop over. I'm going to search that zip code in Google. I'm going to pull up a map. I'm going to save that map and say, okay, why and where should I be looking? Once I pull it up, my first step is Snapchat. I'll jump into Snapchat and see, okay, well, where's the activity in that zip code? And that'll tell me, okay, well, hey, there's a high school here, there isn't, there's a school, there's a mall. Where should I be hanging out? Right? What's the largest demographic of Snapchat, right? That's our audience. Obviously, Laughlin, Bullhead, that's casinos, bars, even though it's super popular, I'm probably not going to spend a whole lot of time there because I know that's not my demographic. It looks cool, it's fun, but am I going to pull enlistments? No. I'm going to drop down to the second one. The second most populated, dense area on the Snapchat map was this neighborhood right here. There's some stores, some schools, but primarily it was the same couple people posting the same story over and over and over. So Snapchat takes that demographic and you can see it, takes that data and saves it. You can click on it and look and watch those stories. It was the same 2 or 3 people over and over and over that saturated that market. So I was like, well, it's the hottest, but I don't really need to be spending my time there because it's the same couple people. That's why it's so dense. Then I hop over to the third. You see some outlying bubbles, one here, see outlying portions of the city. This is like a golf club. This is right by the water. So, okay, but generally speaking, Monday through Friday, people aren't going to be here. So I go to this area and I say, well, this is a hot area. I wonder why. I scroll down, I zoom in onto that area. Well, Mojave High School happens to be right there. We've got a Boys and Girls Club, Mojave High School, which is the largest high school in the zip code. And this is the lunch spot, right? Here's some stores between this freeway and here. There's a lot going on. Said, well, there's a Boys and Girls Club. That's good for us, right? There's an Elks Lodge right here. This circle isn't the entire hot zone area. It's just generally speaking where it's pinned at. Right here, the Stars, an active duty Army storefront. Boys and Girls Club, thrift store. There's just a bunch of activity right here. So then I hop over and I start looking at the high school. I said, okay, that's definitely a feeder market for that high school. That's where they're going. That's where they're hanging out. That's where they're posting. There's a bunch of other stuff on this corner, and other schools, post office, etc. So I drop down and go even more in depth. Okay, I've identified the high school that's popular in that zip code in this area. Well, what is around that those students are going to be hanging out at, right? Obviously, we know that Dutch Bros is a big one. Any other similar places that you know students are going to go to? So I always look at those restaurants. Where are they going for lunch? Is it an open campus? Is it not an open campus? This one happens to be. I find the Dutch Bros, which is right here, right across the street from the high school. Say, hey, well, that's a good spot to potentially hang out, grab some coffee, meet some people, get to know your AO. So when you're in that high school, you can talk with those students. You can be more relatable because they now associate you with their neighborhood. They say, oh, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. This recruiter I can trust a little bit. You want to know you, like you, trust you, then you can sell them anything. They know you already. They like you because you know their AO. They trust you because you're providing them relevant content on their AO. Hey, man, did you know Dutch Bros across the street's having a sale tomorrow? Big party. Check it out. When you're having those conversations with those kids, it helps build rapport. But if you don't know that AO, you're just another recruiter selling another product. So you look at that Dutch Bros, that's usually my first go-to. I jump over and I pull it. So I'll put Mojave High School. Here's some things that are pertinent about that high school. And we have a high school number 1. It's a block away from the Army storefront. That DOD storefront take is 5. So they're pulling contracts out of that AO right there. If they can, why can't I, right? Then we look at the Elks Lodge. That's probably another good spot. Cultivate some COIs, some VIPs. I'm sure they have some sort of a relationship. And you look at, well, the southwest corner of that school is the police station. Well, hey, do they have a junior police program right there? What else is going on? You have a DOD center. Are there potential CDL holders in that area? You start looking at all of those things. You got elementary schools. Okay, well, elementary school teachers have student loans. You know, think about those type of opportunities. And then you can start to develop your market plan to say, okay, how am I going to hit that? What area, what units do I have within this general city that I could fill? Is there an 88 mic transportation unit? If so, I should probably check out Arizona Department of Transportation's hub right there. They might be able to help me. Then I pull over even more, and this is just a quick snapshot. This is probably a third of what I do. This is what I'm working on right now. And I just keep going. I identify every possible route, malls, advertising opportunities, etc. Then I can funnel that zip code through DDB, CACI, the SBA, and start pushing information that way. So hop over Dutch Bros. You just Google Dutch Bros, look at their Google My Business. You can pull up their analytics, and they tell you this is their map for their customers on their time map. When you should come, when it's busy, when's the most likely time, that the best time for you to visit their establishment, right? Not have a wait. So that Dutch Bros daily visit rate by hour says they're busy in the morning. Okay, wow, 9 o'clock, 8, 9 o'clock, that's fair. People are stopping there before work, before school. I'm sure all the kids hang out there, right? Brand association. You might want to get the coffee in the morning right there. Hang out there. Then it dips down, it peaks a little around lunchtime. It is an open campus. And it dips down, it peaks again after school. And then when I pulled it, this was outrageous. So why is this the outlier, right? 7 o'clock, I think I pulled it the other night, 7 o'clock on a Tuesday. Why? What's going on? Well, if you look at the Snapchat map of that time, there was a bunch of people there. There was a car show in the parking lot right across from the high school. That's relevant to know. You should probably take a Humvee and do a static display over there, because you're gaining all of that traction, all of those students that are going to be there, right? Worst case, take your family, your friends, your team, and walk around that parking lot. Well, how would you know that, right? How would I know that there was a show going on right there on a Tuesday night? Well, more data mining, right? You got to keep digging. You got to keep going and see what other resources can I get? How would I know that? So I jump up and I start to create that web for them. And recruiters should be doing this themselves. In my opinion, it's a great practice. And I say, well, critical websites. The high school district website is huge. That's where you're going to find a lot of your information. But once you start really diving in, it gets deeper and deeper. The city website, and I'll just create a hyperlink. I'll drop it over here. The Chamber of Commerce, they'll tell you what's going on. You got the community needs assessment report. That's something I talked about in that post. That's the city. They put money towards funding to pull demographic information, social gaps, resource gap, employment gaps, any potential needs that community has projected out or currently. And they'll talk about it. They will 100% say that they project a need in community service and healthcare, and maybe there's a big nuclear plant being built and they need employment for that. They'll talk about all those things in this community needs assessment report. Every major city runs one. Some smaller counties, smaller towns have a version as well. And it'll start to connect those dots. City events, you can go to the Bullhead City website, pull the city event calendar, and look. Say, oh, well, there's a car show in this parking lot. Well, is that relevant to me? No, maybe. But if you know your market and you say, well, we go to this car show all the time and it's great. But if it's in a zip code that's yielded 1 DOD take, you might want to consider saving that night and putting it somewhere else. If it's in a DOD zip code that's yielded 8 and it's a block away from that active duty storefront and it's across the street from your number 1 tier 1 high school, that might be the one you want to go to, right? And then you go up, and that's just the community aspect of it. I break it down and go even further into the high school portion. And I'll go as far as pulling the Instagram handles for the high school students, the clubs, the meetings. And I start to put that together and say, all right, well, who's the popular kid? Who's he friends with? And you can really start to search through these pages, the football, the baseball, the student council, and find these students and get to relate to them? Is it intrusive? Absolutely. You are trying to know your market down to the smallest possible grain. Who are these kids? Who are these students? What are their wants? What are their needs? And it's no different than like a profile, right? You're profiling your entire community. That's how you gain market share. Speaking from somebody who was in law enforcement for several years, it really helps. Then you jump into, this is my favorite one, the Student Council Google Calendar. Most schools have this. Most student bodies create a report like this. I'll pull it up. You can find it. You can find it on Google because it's a Google Doc. You got to search and dig for it. I don't think it's going to pull with me on this page. But what it does, I don't know if it's going to let me open it with me on Zoom, but it tells me it's the calendar for the entire student body. And what it says in there, now it's maybe, it's every event that the student body has.
So you're trying to make that work. I just want to do a little bit of review because kind of limited on time, but the first part, just for everybody listening, this is on the test, is know the data of where the enlistments have come from. You can't say yes to everything. You have a limited amount of time. So if you focus on your top zip codes to drill this down, where you're going to direct your recruiting effort, it's going to be more fruitful for you. And the spreadsheets that you have as like a template would be very useful for recruiters as a tool to say, here's an example of what I can do in my area to drill down to my 1 or 2 top areas. The school website, community areas, working out from the school, like you mentioned, the businesses that are right outside of the school, students are going to stop there before and after school to get their energy drinks and whatnot. And the community events that you mentioned are opportunities. So I think putting this all together, it might seem daunting on the front end, but if you have that first piece of data that you pulled up, the data warehouse information, you have your priority of schools and zip codes right there. So you wouldn't necessarily do this on every zip code. You'd go where the fish have been caught in the past. So I just wanted to kind of circle back around on that. And if that's not going to pull up, that's fine. But that's some really good.
So it won't let me open it with the other with the Zoom open. But that's the big piece, is we only have so much bandwidth and so much time and energy, and I see it often. And the longer you're in the recruiting battalion, you'll see it more and more, where you have that young, eager NCO who just pushes and pushes and pushes and then burns themselves out because they have the work ethic, but they're not gaining the results. And they're not gaining the results 9 times out of 10 because they're working to work, but they can't articulate the difference of effective work. It's, you take this data and you're going to do phone power. Well, where are you going to do your phone power at? Is it your hot leads? Is it just random leads? Is it a high school list, college list? Why not get Mojave High School phone power? That's the one you should be doing first. And then drop down to this one, Yavapai, 86323, and do phone power there. You're more likely statistically to gain traction there compared to just sending out a mass text to this zip code. Or, well, hey, that's where all the people are at. Yeah, but if those people don't join and haven't statistically joined, you're wasting your energy. And we can't afford that, because you can only do that so long before you're on 3 or 4 mandatory reports. You have to come in the morning. You got to do phone power on Wednesday nights and Thursday nights. You got to give up a Saturday to work the storefront because you're not on mission. It's not that you're not working hard. You're just potentially working in the wrong AO. And identifying that early on in your career, where do I need to be? And start building the data for that. These pieces are going to tell you. The information is out there. The high school calendar, all right, I've identified the school I need to be in. Now, what do I need to know? I've identified the area. Jump on there, pull the high school event calendar. That's going to tell you everything that's going on. My most important takeaway from all of this, in my opinion, is the school board minutes and meeting notes. Now that you've identified that, go pull the school board minutes. The school board district has a meeting, either monthly or quarterly, and they have to record it in the form of minutes or meeting notes. So the recorder sits there and types up all these notes as all these administrators are talking. They're talking about the needs, the wants, the goals, funding. Usually it's heavily related to funding. And they're going to tell you. And it's always, we need to increase by X amount of percent. So write that down. And when you go into these, use those keywords. When you go into that high school, don't go into high school and say, yes, I have college student loan repayment and we have state tuition reimbursement and state tuition. Great. But if this school's big push is trade schools, when you say trade schools, you're more likely to get some traction from day one instead of spending 4 months there to find out that it's trade schools. And they're going to tell you here, they're going to tell you right here in these meeting notes, they're going to say, we need to increase college enrollment by 12%. That's usually a big one. That's always related in there somewhere. Or trade schools to fund this big new construction project that's going on. It's going to take over the county. Because again, those legislators push that. They know that's how they get elected, and they'll talk about those topics. So these educators say, well, what value can we provide to our students? Here's where the community is going, and here's what we need to be pushing. Once you identify that, go to your school and talk about those topics. You got to get out of the rut of, well, this is what we have. This is the feature and the benefit. Well, if that feature and benefits isn't relevant, based on the data here, you might not want to sell it as much. Put a lot more of your eggs in the basket that says all the administrators really want college enrollment up. Awesome. When you walk into high school and the first time you meet that principal and that college counselor and you say, yeah, I have this great college enrollment program, school entry vehicle, they're going to remember that. They're going to say, oh, wait, my boss really wants to see that. My boss really, really wants this after school program, this college enrollment, this whatever that topic may be. Now they're the hero, because when they introduce you to their boss and their faculty and their students, they're solving a problem that's already been identified. They're going to reach out to you a lot more than if you said, oh, we have X, Y, and Z that isn't relevant to any of their mission priorities for the year. So jump into that, jump into the district activities, look at the high school based on the data. It's going to take some time. So I humbly ask NCOICs to assist in that process, because this takes some time. You can do it in a couple of days, really get a good idea of where you need to be, and then hit the ground running. Then when you request marketing support and you request additional support, you know what you're requesting. It's not the same thing over and over and over. Because trade schools, stop requesting lanyards and water bottles. Why not start requesting vocational kits? Why not start requesting protective glasses and gloves and whatever else that feeds that demographic, your robots and your STEM stuff, especially if the school's identified that they have a need there, you provide that need.
Well, all of this stuff really comes down to, like, we take the time to learn our features and benefits. We do. And it's a good part of our education program as recruiters. Now, when we get a location that's going to be our location, we need to spend an equal or more amount of time understanding what our battle space is. And it's something that our competitors have as part of their training. I don't know how much they use it, but if we leverage what you're talking about to have the best understanding of our area, we'll be at the right place at the right time with the right message, and the results are very predictable. We will do much better. Something that we kind of brushed over at the beginning, I just want to make sure that we highlight. You had mentioned it is, well, the counselor lets me in, and that's kind of a trap, right? If we have the teacher or the counselor or the principal at a low volume school that is always saying yes, we have a tendency to follow that yes. When we have the top tier school, that we got to figure it out. And there might not be a yes right now, but they could be a yes getting this additional information that you're talking about. If I have the school board minutes and I find out that our objective this year is to increase trade school enrollment by 10%, well, I might get some traction if I'm referencing one of their goals. And it is always about what they are trying to accomplish. So this might be some heady, quick stuff for a recruiter. I thought your post out there was very well laid out. So that is, it's on the recruiting forum. What would also be useful that I would ask that you do is like an example, maybe not someone's specific area, but an example of this information that you put together would be great to post out there, because I do think it would be as a template for what recruiters can do to make a plan on. This is really the basis of their prospecting plan and ownership of their area. And it could be very useful if you could post that out there. That'd be great.
Yeah, so I'm going to finish this one up. This recruiter has moved on since. This is one, a real good one to post out there. Once I get it done, I've sent others out through other marketing NCOs and kind of walked some other recruiters in other states through it. Tomorrow, I'll be with another state, kind of reviewing some of their stuff, and I can definitely post it. I got to look at where some of this information is. I don't know if I want to put it on the forum exactly, but maybe on a Teams post or email. Feel free, anybody can email me and I'll shoot it over to them, and they can use that as a template or reference guide, just as a starting point. This is not the end all be all. There's so much more you can add to this portion, but this should be done week one, because if not, you're going to spend hours and hours and days and weeks running around selling the wrong product to the wrong audience at the wrong time, hoping to get lucky. And you can't sustain that way. You're not going to be successful in the recruiting battalion if you do that. You may, but you're going to be old, you're going to be tired, you're going to be exhausted, and you're going to be disgruntled in 3 years. And that's just my experience. We're going to work hard. NCOs work hard. Why not work effective? You know?
Yeah. And don't take somebody's word for it. That's the, kind of my final word on it is, this is data. This is provable information. Where the enlistments came from, where the large high schools are, where people that are on social media platforms, where they're physically at in your area. All those things are real data. It's not, hey, you'll never get into that school, so don't go there. The disgruntled previous recruiter, or what the rumor is about that area. It is the real hard facts of what this area is about. And we can do something with that. So I think this is all really good stuff. Again, that is Staff Sergeant Aaron Hoyt from Arizona. So if you're listening and you have questions, I'm sure if you shoot him an email, he can send you an example of that template. So I think this is really good stuff. I do appreciate you taking some time out to break it down for us and putting it out there. There's probably another recruiter out there that's got another thing that would, add to your idea or marketing NCO. So this is how we get better as a force. So it's all good stuff. I'll give you a minute for the last word, but I just want to thank you for coming on and putting this information out there.
Well, no, thank you so much. My email, Aaron J. Hoyt 3 at Army. And like I said, it's not the end all be all, and there's a million other things that you can do. Be open-minded to saying yes. Be open-minded. Let's try it. Why not? Unless you're killing it with what you're doing, awesome. Keep doing that, but it doesn't hurt to add another tool. And my favorite quote to end that conversation is, understanding is powerful. Knowing your audience is effective, but understanding your audience is the end game, right? You understand your audience, you can provide them with resources that they need now. And by doing that, you add value to yourself. Got to take the time to understand your audience, not just know them. Got to understand them. And this is just one way to do that.
That's awesome. Thanks again. We'll get this out next week. And I really appreciate it. Keep on doing the good stuff that you're doing.
Thank you, David, so much.
Thank you.